The story begins with a 38-year-old woman named Jean, who is going through a marital crisis. While she wants to try new things to save her marriage, her husband prefers to be with another woman and mercilessly abandons our protagonist. Luckily, she has two adorable children who are always there to give her a big hug when their mother feels lonely and depressed. Jean naturally focuses all her energy on her work. Unfortunately, due to her weak personality, she is always bullied at work. When she arrives at the office, Jean is sent by her boss to inspect a construction site and is accompanied by her colleague Merlin, with whom she had a one-night stand. Merlin is married and has children. Now they are both in the same elevator. Jean feels uncomfortable, but she will never refuse her boss's orders. When they get to places, because of the heels, they get tied up in the mud, and the workers make fun of her for being as weak as a princess. When Jean inspects the faucets, water comes out of cracks in the wall. Looking at the attendant with a mean face, he ignores her, and Jean finishes her report, stating that there is only minimal water leakage. Merlin can't stand her weak performance and orders her to return to the office as he will be in charge of writing the report. At that moment, Jean feels slighted. At the same time, her ex-husband calls her in an annoyed tone, telling her that, by law, they can both take turns taking care of the children. He reveals that his new wife has just given birth to a cute baby and is unable to pick up Jean's children from school. Our protagonist, very angry, hangs up the phone and at that moment faints due to anger with her ex. Merlin catches her, but the floor is so slippery that they both fall in the mud. At night, Jean wakes up due to a strong storm with a lot of lightning. At that moment, Jean is afraid because it is midnight. When she gets up to enter the shower, she stops in front of the toilet to release liquid from her bladder, but dazed from sleep, she fails to notice that something is wrong. Returning to bed and lying down, she suddenly opens her eyes and is surprised by what she did while standing up. Quickly, she touches her globes, and luckily, they are still there. Checking his pants, he notices a large man's tool. Immediately, she starts screaming, but the noise ends up waking up the children. The little ones approach their mother, and she speaks to them in a thick voice as if it were that of a man. Jean, worried, has to lie to them, saying that she feels uncomfortable because of the cold and that with a rest, everything will pass. Then Jean discovers that her underwear is uncomfortable because of her new anatomy. She immediately rifles through her entire closet, but fortunately, she finds a pair of her ex's flowered underwear. The next morning, Jean begins to experience the pain a man feels when hitting his genitals. For example, when he rides his bike and ends up crushing one of her spheres. Jean is actually not in the mood to go to work and worries that someone will mistakenly find out what is happening to her, so she takes a leave of absence. Finally, Jean visits her best friend and soon after tells her straight out that she has something new growing in her body. Upon showing her the tool, her friend thinks it's something artificial and thinks she's playing a bad joke on her. But this curious friend pulls hard on Jean's tool and it falls to the ground, causing her great pain. The girl, realizing that it is not a joke, calms down. They go up to the roof, where the friend carefully examines Jean's new device, detailing every part, smell, and shape. The friend excitedly tells her that this is a great thing, as she will now have the mind of a woman and the tool of a man. Plus, she will be able to enjoy a dual identity. The next morning, she urgently goes to the gynecologist. As soon as she walks in the door, she strips off her pants. The doctor, seeing such a tool on a woman, rushes out. He goes to the water fountain to see if he is dreaming, but discovers that it is all true. When he returns to the office, he reassures Jean so they don't panic. The doctor plans to refer this girl to other specialists so that they can solve her problem. However, Jean immediately refuses. She only wants to be cared for by him because if another doctor finds out about this, she could spend the rest of her life in a laboratory as an alien. Besides, she has 2 children to take care of. Jean proposes to the doctor that he cut her tool, but the gynecologist warns her that it is too great a risk. He also explains to her that the procedure is very dangerous and that she could probably lose a lot of blood in the surgery. Jean is in a panic, but the doctor gives our protagonist an idea, telling her that she can get attached to the tool and that maybe one day it will disappear. Jean calms down a bit and decides to give her tool a name, calling it Rabbit, as it was one of her favorite stuffed animals in childhood. When she returns home, Jean decides to give the rabbit affection again and again until she reaches her peak. Gradually, Jean finds her subtle way into his psychology, where she begins to fix her gaze on posters of beautiful girls. When Gina visits her, Jean fixes her gaze on her friend's bottom. Then, Jean unconsciously approaches her friend with intentions of a close relationships, but Gina escapes from her side with much fear. Besides, her friend loves men. Jean's leave of absence is over, and she has to return to work. That day, our protagonist goes with Merlin to inspect a construction site, but on their way, a car rudely crosses them. Jean quickly gets out of the car to complain to the other driver for his recklessness, as a man would do. However, it turns out that the reckless one is an Asian who applies his kung fu techniques when he tries to hit Jean. Merlin quickly intervenes and takes a brutal blow to his eye. When they arrive at the construction site, Jean is no longer weak in the face of the workers' problems and difficulties. At night, when Jean is working overtime, she decides to empty her bladder in the men's showers. But suddenly, she is surprised by a female security guard roaming the area. As soon as the security guard notices Jean's rabbit, she faints. When she wakes up, Jean explains the situation to her and hopes she can understand it, hoping that everything will be kept a secret. The security guard, named Frances, also reveals her concerns to Jean. In fact, she has been single for 30 years and has never been intimate with anyone. The two share a drink and stare at each other. Jean offers to break Frances's seal with her rabbit for a night of incredible love. Jean adapts to her new identity and is now full of masculine strength. When our protagonist goes to the supermarket, she notices a woman who cannot move drinks and she immediately offers to help her. In the morning, it is no problem for her to take 2 children to kindergarten while her poor friends struggle with only 1 child. Riding a bicycle is also very easy for her, and she walks with ease over construction sites with muddy roads. When talking to the workers, she behaves openly and not as shy as before. Merlin is completely impressed by her. On the other hand, Jean's ex falls in love with our protagonist again. When they meet, Jean puts a substance on him that stirs up the bang bang. When the man is at his peak, Jean shows him her rabbit and this man ends up fainting on the bed. When he wakes up, this man feels severe pain in the area where the sunlight does not reach, revealing that Jean processed him with her rabbit as punishment. On the other hand, when everyone is working on the construction site, suddenly, a tree is hit by a truck, and when it is about to fall on Merlin, Jean saves him from a departure to heaven. Later, the two have a conversation after the incident, and Merlin asks Jean if she still has feelings for him, which she tells him that it is best not to broach the subject as he is a married man. Though internally Jean's heart is pounding, for Christmas, Jean's ex picks up the children and she is left alone. The next day, by chance in the play, Jean learns that Merlin is divorced and also has to take care of 4 children. To balance the work, she has to take her children to the construction site. The next evening, Jean receives a call from Merlin inviting her to go out. Our protagonist accepts as she is madly in love with him. Besides, they are already divorced. At the club, Merlin asks Jean if she has a boyfriend. Our protagonist understands that this is a confession, but since she knows what his condition is, she tries to evade the question. Then, after so much conversation, Merlin is ready to give Jean a tasty treat. But the girl is so scared that she gets up and backs away, escaping with the excuse that she has allergies. Days later, when Merlin and Jean meet again, he tells our protagonist that she is fascinating since she combines the strength of a man with the tenderness of a woman. Faced with such a confession, Jean can't help but give Merlin a tasty treat. At this point, Jean asks Merlin about his orientation in the Bang Bang. And if by chance of fate, she agrees to a homo relationship, Jean, after getting a negative answer, sadly tells Merlin that they can only be friends. Our protagonist sadly walks away, leaving Merlin standing in the same place, very confused. Jean is in great pain, and at this moment she wants to be a woman again, and she wants to give herself a chance. With a glimmer of hope, she visits her gynecologist, who recommends a good hospital to operate on her bunny. However, the doctor warns her that if she wants to become a woman again, the surgery and recovery time will take several years, and the results may not be perfect. For this reason, they recommend that she ignore her current identity and take the initiative to express her love to Merlin, regardless of whether she is a man or a woman with a bunny. Jean, hearing this, decides to meet Merlin when she is ready to confess her secrets to him. Lightning flashes and a very strong wind takes over. Just as when she became a man, Jean miraculously turns completely into a woman, sans bunny. Excited, she runs to Merlin and they end up embracing. Our protagonist is now a woman again. She is no longer the same coward. Finally, when the family celebrates the birthday of one of the children, someone knocks on the door and it is revealed that it is Francis, who has arrived with a baby saying that he is Jean's son, and our protagonist faints at the news. The moral of the story is that real strength and bravery come from embracing who you truly are, rather than conforming to society's ideas about looks or gender roles. By being genuine and expressing love and truth, even when it's hard, you can undergo a powerful transformation and form more authentic connections with anyone around you. What would you have done if you were Merlin? Would you have accepted Jean with such a strange condition? We'll read you in the comments. If you liked this video, you'll like this one even more.